So I can now just feel something.
Do you want to explain what that sensation feels like?
The sensation is like this. Like, I need to explain it. But it's like someone running their finger across you.
Okay.
Like that's like literally just across the palm of your hand going. So I could feel something was there, but it doesn't.
Okay. So willing to keep going?
Yeah.
So that's 22.
So that's 22 where I can feel it like
25.
Now I can feel it a bit more.
Which is why I get so fired up. Because again, I've worked with children that have tried to stab me, and I've worked with dogs that are willing to try and kill me. And I work with those children, or used to work with those children, and I work with those dogs because I care. Because I love them and I don't want to see them.
Yeah.
I didn't want to see those kids end up in prison because I know what happens in those situations. So I would be the one putting myself in that situation where they were trying to stab me, they were trying to hurt me, they were trying to burn down rooms with me in them, they were trying to commit suicide on a regular basis. I put myself through psychological damage to myself of having to deal with that and the mental health things that caused me because I care. I do the same with dogs because I care and I want to help them, and I don't, the same way I don't want to see those kids go to prison, I don't want to see these dogs get put down and end up in shelters. We are live, but not live.
But not live.
In the squeakiest chairs in the world.
Oh, very squeaky. And this is called the Fenrir Skol podcast.
Excellent.
Now, why is it called the Fenrir Skol podcast?
Because we're massive Viking wannabes.
Correct. And Skol.
Skol.
Skol. Skol. Skol. I feel like I've got a really low voice to say every time. Skol.
Skol.
Yeah.
And I am definitely not manly enough to drink that because that is far too hot for me.
That's too hot.
Yeah, look at the steam, mate. You know I like a cool coffee, lukewarm. We've had this
we are
discussion
drinking
before.
out of the glass as well. How delightful.
Why is that?
Because we have no cool mugs.
We have Mickey Mouse mugs, but I don't think that'd look quite
It's
so
like
nice
a
on the
real-
Jack Daniels barrel.
The vibe, if you're watching on YouTube, the vibe is very cool. And a Mickey Mouse mug just wouldn't cut it.
So we've got some awesome horn mugs en route, but they didn't arrive in time. So
glass. But I think
it
they
is.
still look good. These are your whiskey glasses.
they are my whiskey glasses.
And the coffee still tastes good.
It does
from
taste
a whiskey
good.
glass.
What coffee have we got, Mr. Master Barista?
Well, today we're drinking a washed Guatemalan coffee.
Oh yes,
roasted
I can taste
in-
the Guatemalan
in-
notes coming through.
Roasted in Liverpool.
Liverpool, good.
It's delightful. I'm very much enjoying it. So first podcast.
First podcast.
First Fenrir
Fenrir
Skol podcast. Where we're just going to be talking, obviously, a lot of things. Dogs.
That's really good.
It is good, isn't it? It is good. It's
Sorry
a good
to talk
coffee.
about that.
No.
That's a fist bump I've ever seen.
Yeah, man.
You've nailed that.
We're going to be talking loads of things. Dogs.
Yes.
Standard. Pretty obvious that we were going to be doing that.
Business.
Fenrir
Family. Team.
Fenrir family, life stuff, health, activities, so many activities.
So much room for
activities. Just kind of everything. The funny thing is we kind of had been planning this for quite a while.
Yeah.
And the plan was to start this next week.
Hence the lack of mugs.
Hence the lack of mugs. Yes. But as some people may see that follow us on social media, we were a little outraged yesterday by an article that was put up on the BBC news site all about e-collars.
And more specifically, YouTube trainers promoting the use of e-collars.
Precisely.
Now, I don't usually get triggered, and I'm very aware that in my line of work as a balanced behaviourist and trainer who advocates these kind of tools, that comes with the territory.
Yeah.
I think there was the first of all, that it was very specifically targeted at YouTube trainers, of which I am one of those now. I am very loud on YouTube about promoting a balanced approach and have one of the biggest channels for that. So definitely I'm in that. So I think I took it a bit of a personal attack. And I think also just caught me on one of those days. And it's like... It got me. It got under my skin. And I usually... So I think that one of the worst things that we can do, and I'm going to really try and make this conversation not go that way, is that we can we do that tribalism, us versus them.
Yeah.
Let's fight
Yeah.
behind a keyboard, behind a camera, and no progress is made. And I try and make sure myself and Fenrir step above that and go from more a purely advocacy, if that's a word, perspective of trying to educate and advocate and raise positive awareness rather than just buying into squabbling online. But yeah, I'll be completely self-aware that I got triggered a little bit yesterday, and it definitely got under my skin. So you were like, that could be a pretty good topic for the first podcast.
It's a very interesting topic. I got triggered by it more around the e-collar side of things, and what I was going to say was actually, or as they like to call them, shock collars.
Shock collars. Well, there's a whole topic there, isn't there?
Let's make it really dramatic and call them shock collars rather than e-collars.
Yeah. I remember I watched, not to cut you off, and it doesn't, to that point, I watched a program. Have you ever watched Hugh Fernley Whittingall River Cottage?
Hugh Fernley Whittingstall.
That's the one.
That's the one.
English posh names. I can't pronounce
Yes, yeah.
But he goes and sets up a bit of like, that's what we're doing here. Sets a bit of a small holding and living a country dream. And he brought people on a very early episode who were kind of plant-based vegan activists, but this was back in the day, and they call people corpse crunchers. Corpse crunchers.
Wow.
For people that would eat meat. And it's just one of those, like, what a way to instantly attack people and to use vocabulary to just naturally put your bias spin on any kind of topic.
Of going, you're shocking the dog for the whole time.
And a shock collar, I was like,
really
I don't know why,
happening.
it just reminded me of that episode of River Cottage. But absolutely.
So, go and check out the article if you haven't checked it out. I think from the BBC of the articles that I have ever read that's around dog training, usually it's been very, very one-sided.
Yes.
Down the, can I say airy-fairy route?
I think
this is what the podcast is for. I'm allowed to say. Like a lot more down kind of airy-fairy, like everybody love everybody.
Dog moms.
Yeah. Kind of route. I get it. Everyone gets dogs for different reasons. Everyone has different views. That's all cool. But it is completely biased, one-sided. And I found that difficult. In yesterday's, they actually went and spoke to some YouTubers, which was good because getting that balance. But I think the thing with YouTube is that it's a platform where there's people doing stupid ass stuff on YouTube. Stupid stuff. I watch like some of the biggest YouTubers in the world and you're like, why are you doing that? That's mental. That makes no sense. And now other people are going to go and do that.
Yeah.
And I get it. So I get that side of things. Like people see it, go.
That's why they call
I'm going to go and do that.
influencers.
Yeah. I'm going to go and do that thing that I've seen done. Now, if people are out there using e-collars in an incorrect way and being like idiots with them and not using the tool correctly, then I don't advocate that at all. It's not.
Well, nobody does.
No one does. That's the thing. I'm not here to hurt a dog. I'm not about that. If you're just buzzing a dog for no reason or not getting educated, then it's crazy. But the people that I watch on YouTube, and I think us as Fenrir, that we're trying to achieve as well and want to put across, it's that.
Well, straight away share those names as the people that I see as my colleagues and role models, people I look up to on YouTube. The Tom Davises. Larry Crone and Robert Cabral would probably be the big three that I would say on
and we
YouTube
started working with Garrett as well.
Yeah, Garrett Wing.
He's doing amazing stuff. It's just you watch it and you're like, this is incredible. Yeah. This is so good what you're doing.
With an e-collar.
With an e-collar.
Positive, fun
way. Here's how it's meant to be done properly. Fantastic. Like, that's great. And it's educating people correctly.
And saving a lot of those dogs' lives by the correct implementation of that tool.
There's twofold to saving a dog's life, I think, because there's one where things can get dramatized, but it's, those cases where actually this problem gets fixed or your dog's going to get put down, and e-collars can do that.
Yeah.
There's no denying that e-collars can do that.
Like prong collars.
So that's like prong collars. And for me, where's the balance of that? Do I just go, no, I don't want to use e-collars because it's doing whatever it's doing, so I want the dog to be put down? No, I think I'd actually just prefer this dog to have boundaries and knowledge of that.
Well, I think...
And having that in place and not be put down.
There's a conversation to be had there, though. Obviously, it's no secret that we advocate for the use of a positive implementation of an e-collar.
Yeah.
However, if... say that e-collar was a shock collar and you were just shocking the dog. And this dog, like the dogs that you've seen me work with lots of times, I tend to, in those situations... Now, the reason you don't see me use e-collars that much is because I tend to, especially when with the shelter dogs, I've got one chance. 30 minutes. So I will often go straight to a prong collar because that's the tool that can do that quickly. With an e-collar... I think it should be like a good 4 to 6 week program of associated and doing it in the right way. We're not just putting it on and blasting them. You learn it all. We can talk about that later. But if you're with that dog and this dog is going to get put down because of severe whatever, bear in mind, and this is again another thing that I'll go on a rant about and get fired up on, but it's been to lots of trainers, and lots of trainers have advocated for the euthanasia of this dog. Those trainers being the trainers that are hurling the abuse at people like myself and the other balanced people advocating the use of tools. And it is those trainers, and I've got the emails from clients that have come to me after going to those trainers, and the texts of, I won't work with your dog anymore, you need to put it down. Happens literally every day. Every balanced trainer will have those stories to share. But even if that shock collar was genuinely shocking the dog and hurting it, but it is going to get put down and that fixed the problem, is there an argument to be said that even that is fairer than putting the dog down? Now, absolutely, in those circumstances are we saying that that's what those tools should be used for. But again, we're in a situation, and many balanced people that use these tools are in that situation of last effort. I've been to this trainer and I paid $2,000 and it didn't work. I've been to this trainer and it was $4,000 and it didn't work. I've been to this trainer and it was another $1,000, and after 30 minutes said that there's no way I could work with that dog. And I've had stories of people in big training centres where the trainer was on one side of the room, 20 metres away from the person with the dog on a muzzle and a lead, training it from the other side of the room because it's so dangerous. And they're the dogs that you see we get stuck straight in with and get our hands on with. Even in those situations, if it was, a little bit of punitive measures will save this dog's life, I would go as far as to say I would even advocate for that if that's what was required. Now, with that being the case, is then when it gets even more frustrating because that isn't what's happening with these tools. And I sometimes wonder, is this just sheer lack of understanding? Sheer kind of people are just not educated on the topic, and then they're in an internet echo chamber of hearing that stuff bounced off other people that are uneducated? Or is it more than... I like to think that that's what it is, which is why we believe in the education, as opposed to them having more of a tribalistic, well, I'm on this team, so you on your team, we're going to burn your team down because I'm team this, team positive, team force free, therefore team balance, you can go. And if that's the case, which sometimes I do think it is, that's, I think, probably more where it doesn't anger me, it upsets me if anything, because then, well, are you putting the dog first? Because I can say that I am, and I know that Tom and Garrett and Larry and Robert, they are, and they're not doing it because they get off on hurting dogs or get off on shocking them. They do it because they care, and they don't want to... They've seen dogs savage other people. They've seen dogs murder other dogs. They've seen dogs be put down. And when you see it, and I think... I know for a fact that there's a lot of trainers that just have never been down that road. They've never seen it with their eyes. And then if they are only ever listening to people in that kind of echo chamber that's bouncing off, and like I say, it's difficult to not turn it into that. And I know I'm kind of getting fired up now, so I kind of want you to jump in and cut me off because I need to relax.
I'm a lot more with this stuff, these controversial topics. Now it can be anything, can't it? It doesn't just have to be around dogs and stuff, but it can be literally anything.
Well, the world's full of it, of politics right now, especially in America.
Just over the past year, the amount of topics that have come up that people get riled up. I have no issue with people getting riled up, by the way. It's like, you're passionate about something, awesome, do it, like, change the world, be that person, but educate yourself.
Yeah.
Educate yourself about these things. Don't just run in all guns blazing going, you're wrong, don't, like, this is completely, I don't understand it, like, I don't want you doing these things, and run in. I'm not about that. If you come in with a really educated perspective on it and go, here's my educated view, and we can have a discussion, cool.
Yeah.
That's where I'm a lot more
And I'll do that all day with anybody.
But I can see people's perspectives getting torn down of these things, because if you are on YouTube and you're going, actually, I am going to do an e-collar research, but then you pop up, I don't know, whatever his name is, I can't think of someone that I've seen it used negatively, just because I'm trying to put those right people in my life of watching that, but someone that's using an e-collar incorrectly, or just, you know, having a laugh with it and at the dog's expense, then of course you're going to have a mindset of this is awful. But then I'm not advocating that. I'm going, let's educate ourselves to the whole thing. Yes, there's knobheads out there doing these things, and I don't agree with it. I do not agree with it. I don't want to see dogs hurt. But I also don't want to see dogs that are amazing put down because of one incident that's happened, but that whole, their life and their attitude and their, you know, everything can be changed by good relationship, and that coming through the use of a tool. Now, with some dogs without tools, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it
like
just is the case.
Throwing around treats and stuff, it's not going to work. Like, so then what are your options there? And that's for me where I don't see the discussion, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
that's where I find it hard, because I'm like, I can't see the other side of it, because I'm like, oh, well, I want this dog to live. It's a good dog. It just needs the right thing in its life.
But I think the reason you see it so clearly, like the reason I see it so clearly though, is because you've looked at because you have informed yourself and educated yourself on all the options, and you're going through kind of your training and apprenticeship with me, and then further with me, you're starting to explore with other people that are beyond me in different areas. And I'm pushing you to do that. Like, I can teach you the stuff that I'm good at, Joe, but that stuff isn't me. I want you to go and study under that person and grow. And I think that's what's frustrating, because if you lock yourself into that one mentality, because you've done that, has allowed you to go, okay, well, and like I say, like, I don't mind using names because I've got no ill will towards any of them, even though I know a lot of these people don't like me or like the kind of methodologies that I use, but I have studied people like Zach George and Victoria Stillwell at length.
Yeah.
I have no ill will towards them whatsoever. I know they have ill will towards me and using kind of a balanced approach, but I honestly don't. I've learnt from them. I have learnt from every trainer I could ever watch, every book I could ever read, every article I could ever study, every course I've learnt as much as I can to then form that educated opinion of what works in different circumstances and different situations.
Yeah.
And that's key. But the problem is, if you drop onto dog training, and I'm really sorry to use like single people out, say a Zach George on YouTube, who is then is strongly opposed to these different methodologies, and you only then believe that one person, I then see how, because of the admiration and the influence and stuff, and the fact that his methods work for the things he's doing, and he's superb at things like trick training and obedience work, no qualms with that, far better than I would be at those things, because that's not what I specialise in, but I can definitely learn from that. But that's one piece of a massive puzzle that is working with dogs, and that thing works for that thing, but then the e-collar works for a different thing, and if you try and fix that thing with that thing, it's putting a square block in a round hole and it doesn't work. Now, you've got two options at that point, and this is where I get wound up. When you realise that, a lot of those trainers, because they're on that team, will then kind of put the walls up and go, oh, well, that dog needs to be put down. That's a mental issue. That's whatever, excuses, because my methodology and my team doesn't work for this role. I think if people do that, ultimately, and it's kind of tough love, I think it's narrow-minded and it's ill-educated. I think the people that have the most success, and I think, if I'm being honest, I've always said kind of when people come to me and say I want to work with dogs, I kind of say that dog walking is always, you'll learn so much just from walking other people's dogs. Then learning how to train dogs, and that I always advocate for the vast majority of that being positive reinforcement based training of new things, food work, luring work, toy work, all the lovely stuff. And then I think people will hit that ceiling, and one of two things will happen. You will either go, well, the next level on from that, I see kind of the next progression is into kind of behavior. Now, especially kind of like basic obedience, you can then go down different paths for me. You can take that basic obedience into advanced obedience, which I think is the route that you've become really interested in, which then is, again, still very positive, but you might have to take some tips and tricks to kind of navigate that world. But then I think some people will then be interested in going in the behaviour route. The only people that I've noticed succeed going in that route are the ones that are super open-minded. Now, I think you won't mind me saying in your situation, sometimes those cases, it's not through narrow-mindedness and not wanting to educate yourself on those skills, it's just not your cup of tea. And that's absolutely fine. To not want to Rottweiler to tear your face off, it's cool. But to try and fix that with this method that you've learnt down here on your journey to wanting to fix that, there's just a disparity there. And I think the next steps are educating yourself on more theories, more principles, more tools of the trade. Again, if you want to become a builder, maybe in lesson 1 of your college course you get taught how to use a hammer. Maybe that's positive reinforcement food work. But then in lecture number 2, you need to use a spanner. Now that might be something else. And again, the more tools you add to your tool belt, the more effective of a practitioner you are. And that's, I see it quite clearly and almost coldly and objectively rather than subjectively. But I think if you wrap up your ego in terms of, oh, my methods don't work here, or I don't want to use a word like that, maybe I'm kind of, that just scares me a little bit. And the idea of having to use those tools because it's an advanced area of working with dog, it makes me nervous. Then good. If you'd be self-aware in that and go, okay, that isn't for me. I'm not saying it doesn't work, or I'm going to say you're causing psychological damage to dogs. You're a horrible person, to make you feel better about knowing that that's not for you. Then take another avenue. There's so many other avenues. And if everybody just pulled together and supported those different avenues, and rather than saying, this thing isn't for me, you need to go and speak to one of those guys. Like if you want me to teach your dog competition level heel and advanced agility and obedience, I'm going to say, sorry, that's not me. But
can I just say, I would love to see you doing high level
agility running around a track.
I love it.
You can set that up, absolutely. I'll get about 20 metres round and have to take a break. He's pulling me.
You want me to just do this on my own?
You'll have to put me on a shock collar and blast me around to the agility course.
Come on, Will. I think, so something I'm learning massively, starting to work with a vast variety of dogs, you know, even this past week, we've got English Mastiff, Dog de Bordeaux, a Collie mix, a Labrador, like completely different spectrums. And I'm learning that all these different ways, like what I do with Riley, my Labrador pup, is just not going to work with an English Mastiff pup. So changing your skills and like trial and error and trying all these different things out is what creates the good trainer. Now, in some situations, in some circumstances, in some training sessions you're going to be having with dogs, all these positive reinforcements or whatever that is, whether you're trying to get a dog to heel off it or whatever, may not be working. And you're like, but I've done this like 6 times with these other dogs and it's worked, but with this dog it's just not working. So where do you go with that? And like that's like where you can start to bring in these different things of like, maybe a tool is the solution to this. Maybe it's not. I'm not saying a tool like, oh, I can't do it. Throw a bronc collar on, throw an e-collar on. No, like that's not always the solution to these things. Like the other day, we were training Riley, my pup, to do a lot more jumping into the boot of the car. Simple thing. Some dogs pick it up like that. Other dogs takes a little bit more time. Now we did it with food, not bothered. It's like, not bothered. So we could have just given up there and gone, nah, that's well, she's not going to do it for food. She's not going to do it for anything. Bring out a toy, boom, I'm in. But that's like the development of going, I need to work out what's going to drive you in this situation. Is it going to be food? Is it going to be a toy? Is it going to be praise? Whatever that thing is. But it's working out the right tool for the right situation with the right dog.
Absolutely.
You've got to pick out all these different things to get that overall outcome. And I think that's where we talk about education, is educate yourself overall. We're not saying just learn about e-collars and go down that route every time. Might not be the most effective way of working with that dog that you've got. Maybe
now,
food work is. So
I'll jump in there and say, from an owner's perspective, you're absolutely right there. Now, if you then highlight that an e-collar is the route that would be superb for your dog, well, now is the time to go to a specialist in that.
Exactly.
Now is the time to talk to Garrett Wing or Larry Crone.
Precisely.
Who I hold as the gold standard in the world when it comes to e-collar work. If you came to me to do an e-collar conditioning session with your dog, it's something I've got a decent level of understanding at, but I would go, no, you need to go speak to those guys.
Yeah.
They'll do you a better job of that. Same thing, if you want to come and do some advanced trick training, I'm going to say, you should probably check out Zach George or someone like that. So I want you to succeed.
Because e-collars are the obvious thing that can go incredibly wrong.
Yes. I have a hierarchy, don't I?
There's a hierarchy of stuff that can go wrong, but just like e-collars are one of the things that can go incredibly wrong.
And let me interrupt you there. Food work.
I was about literally going to say
wrong.
the same thing. Food work, you can make your dog flipping obese and they can completely disengage because you're like getting them to sit and you're giving them a steak for it.
Yeah.
You're giving them that's like $1,000 in their eyes. You're giving them that. Whereas actually you want to give them $1 for it. And it's like working out that. So
there's another layer to that though, not just obesity, but you can accidentally use food work to reinforce poor behaviour, which is something that happens all the time.
Yeah.
We had a reactivity case here the other day, didn't we? And what a lot of trainers were trying to get the owner to do, and he'd been through, it was about 5 or 6 trainers. All of them failed, and a couple of them said that you can never have this dog around another dog.
Yeah.
We achieved that in 15 minutes. Not to blow my own trumpet, but what was happening with those other trainers, and this is where it's like, I just wish that they were self-aware enough to go, my methods don't work here. What they wanted to do was, when that reactivity and aggression towards other dogs sparked, was get food out and try and lure it away. I think when you look at that from a common sense perspective, all you're doing there is rewarding that behaviour.
That dog's going,
if
I'm going to
I do
act up
this,
because I get food when I do
and
this.
I'll come away, at best take the food, but then I'm going to go back in because the behaviour hasn't been corrected and modified in any way. You've at best distracted from the behaviour, but you've not corrected or modified the behaviour. Any behaviourist with any kind of common sense or skill will understand that you have to modify behaviour. That's why my work is all behaviour modification programs. Once I've modified that behaviour, I can then train new behaviours. And now I'm back into dog training world of lots of praise and reinforcement and using those things. But it is so common when I get dogs come to me that have had those bad behaviours, unaware, they don't do it on purpose, their heart's in the right place, but have just been reinforcing that bad behaviour with food. And that's why a lot of times you'll see me work with dogs where I don't use any food whatsoever, because I have to unpick that as part of my first kind of initial modification of that behaviour to let them know that, no, that behaviour isn't acceptable anymore. I need you to redirect to this behaviour. I've corrected the behaviour. Now I'm going to redirect and show you the desirable one. And then only then are you going to get reinforced and praised for that behaviour. And like I say, going off on tangents and topics again, I'll let you carry on. But yeah, you can use food in a terrible way, the same way you can use an e-collar in a terrible way. It's harder to mess up food, absolutely. That's why I say that when you kind of go up to a slip lead, you need a bit more finesse and skill, because you'll mess that up really easy if you don't know what you're doing. Go to a prong collar, well, now you can really, that's one of the best tools in the world, especially for modifying behaviour, not necessarily training behaviour, modifying negative behaviour. And then an e-collar I have at the top of the pinnacle, which is, again, you can really use this wrong, but on the flip side of that is that you can really use it right. Yeah. And again, there's people that use, I can read a newspaper or I can roll it up and beat my dog with it. Do we ban newspapers? No, of course we don't. Don't be an idiot and beat your dog with a newspaper. Learn how to use a newspaper right. It's silly, but I do think that that's an easy analogy to kind of compare it to, and that is the situation.
So I think along all of those lines, food work, educate yourself. Slip lead, educate yourself. It's just educate. Like, if you're getting a dog, it's a responsibility.
It's like parenting.
It is a yes, same as parenting. It is a responsibility that you're taking on. So educate yourself about it, and that's. We could go down that route, but actually, like, your like behavioural work and things like that. Wouldn't it be awesome if you had no work in that sense?
I would love it.
Because people would like go in and go, I'm going to get a puppy and I'm really going to educate myself and I'm going to go to town. Before I brought Riley home, I'm spending hours learning but not just how do I do this one thing. It's like, how do I do this broad spectrum of stuff and looking in every direction. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try this because I've seen this work and things like that. You try every single different way and educate yourself across the board. Like, and that's what we talk about, balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's that balance training. It's not one side or another side. It's just creating a balance.
Yeah.
And
putting those tools in your toolbox when stuff does go wrong.
Precisely.
So people might have seen on the training channel the stuff I've been doing with Sandy, the golden retriever. It's those videos are doing very well. So lots of people are coming into the Fenrir world from seeing that.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating because Sandy, being a golden retriever, is very food driven and eager to please. If I'm being completely honest, it makes it so easy because it's good because it makes me look good. It does. Like I say, I know what I'm doing.
You always look great.
Cheers, mate.
Always look
Cheers.
great.
But she makes it easy. He makes it easy for me to look good.
Yeah.
Now, a video that's coming up soon is with the dog de Bordeaux you mentioned earlier for exactly the same issue. The first episode is around pulling. Now, Sandy was very easy and I only needed to use a slip lead because of that food drive.
Yeah.
So what was happening was, when a negative behaviour is displayed and we're at 100% negative behaviour, 0% the desired behaviour, which is to walk nicely, pull in. Both of those dogs were at 100%. They only ever displayed the negative behaviour and were never displaying the positive behaviour, and it was becoming a significant problem, so far so that it was like an emergency in both cases that I had to step in and help them. Now, what we want to do is we want to correct the negative behaviour, and this is standard BF skin or operant conditioning, to decrease the frequency of that behaviour. And we want to, again, using the more reinforcement areas of operant conditioning, see the frequency of the desired behaviour happen more frequently. So I'm going to use corrective-based approaches to see the undesirable behaviour happen less frequently, and then reinforcement-based behaviours to see the desired behaviour happen more frequently. Now, with Sandy, the golden retriever, because she was so food-driven, meant that I corrected the behaviour early, and then I was able to use that eagerness to please and food drive to praise the behaviour. So the undesirable behaviour came down really quickly because the desirable behaviour really quickly took it over. Those sessions are brilliant because they make me, people have spent years pulling their hair out because they've not had the ability to correct the undesirable. I've come in and done that and then tapped into a drive. Food and toy are the easiest ways to do that. With dogs that are food and toy driven, makes it dead easy. They're in tears because they will think I might have to have this dog put down. I might have to give it to a shelter. I love this dog to pieces, but I can't live like this.
Yeah.
And that can happen in a few minutes, and it looks amazing. I get that. Now with the dog de Bordeaux, 0 food drive, 0 toy drive, and I mean, you were there, you were filming 0.
Oh, yeah, 0.
And I test these drives early on to work out what I'm working with, and I have to learn on the fly. So if I'm a positive only trainer with that only tool in my toolbox, and I've got a dog that, and again, you'll see in that episode, but that came to me as an emergency consultation because the owner, very petite, lovely woman, girl, but she had her hand wrapped in the lead. He pulled towards another dog. She fell over and he literally dragged her out across a road.
Dude is strong.
One of the strongest dogs I've ever met, and he's only 10 months old.
I'd go flying.
He's got tons of more muscle to pack on over the coming years, and literally dragged its owner face first across a road. Now, luckily, thank God, there was no traffic, and as much as that was an awful experience, again, thankfully, it could have been so much worse, but I stepped in. Now, if I'm a positive trainer, my only tool in my toolbox is that kind of distraction base that I mentioned earlier. Kendrick, that will not happen.
No.
With no distraction in a room with nothing going on. That will not happen, let alone out in the real world when there's a dog that he is desperate to get at, which is where people go to those trainers. It doesn't work, or at best it works with no distraction, but out in the real world, because
what do you do?
they care about that thing more than this thing. Again, common sense to me. It doesn't work. What are you left with? Well, then I had to focus more on decreasing the negative behaviour using corrective methods. I had to bring that down significantly more first than I did with Sandy, because the positive side with Sandy happened much quicker because she was so food driven. With Kendrick, it wasn't. So the only way I could help them was to decrease that behaviour, see it happen less frequently, which was through the use of a prong collar. So again, whether that video is coming next week, is it? So you'll see that video next week. And then once I'd completely removed that behaviour, we were then able to slowly start teaching the new behaviour. That behaviour, the positive one, is going to take longer to learn because he has no drive to positively reward those drives. Now, what we found is through physical praise, roughhousing, scruffling in behind the ears was a bit of a drive for him. So we're going to have to ensure that we've got that ability to correct the undesirable behaviour and keep that at zero, because without that, now Sandy is back at 100% desirable and will now do anything for the desired outcome of food and toy. Kendrick does not have that whatsoever. So we're going to have to make sure that we keep that ability, that undesirable will very quickly start to come back if they're not careful. So the ability just to stop it happening, and then slowly over weeks and months build this up. Now eventually then we can remove the tool and we're left with the desirable behaviour. But that's kind of the common sense approach, in my opinion, to how having these multiple tools in your toolbox can be pulled out to be able to work in different ways. But if you've only got a hammer and you need something, and you're fixing something that requires a spanner, well then you've got two choices there, I suppose, and this is what happens. You either say that the bolt is broken because my hammer doesn't fix it, so bin that bolt or kill that dog, or you can say, I've only got a hammer and you need a spanner, and you need to go and speak to somebody that's got a spanner in their toolbox, which means in that situation you might need to come to speak to me or another balanced trainer, because your hammer of positive only, which isn't bad, it's just it serves a purpose for a thing, not all things. And that's where I get so frustrated. And again, I've gone massively off on one again there, so I do apologise. But this is what this is for, I suppose.
All from one article.
Yes.
This is how our brains have exploded. And I've been educating myself a lot on e-collars. More down the actual route of less to do with kind of changing a behaviour and more just actually through training. And I found it used in a positive way, and found it absolutely fascinating. One thing I kind of want to throw out there is that with you have an e-collar. There you go. For those listening, we have an e-collar on the table now.
I'm gonna let you.
So something I
in a minute.
found very interesting is teaching a behaviour with an e-collar. So I was listening to one of the top trainers of the LAPD.
On Robert's podcast.
Yeah,
brilliant podcast, by the way.
Brilliant podcast, definitely go check it out. And they all use e-collars. So in the UK, the army uses e-collars.
As far as I'm aware.
I think, the army uses them, police doesn't. LA, they all use, that's for dogs that are trying to find the
detection
bad guy,
dogs.
or detection dogs, or trying to find guns or weaponry. They're using e-collars. Now, what they do to condition them is that they teach them the behaviour first.
Yes.
So they're not going in with an e-collar and being like, sit, boom, sit, boom, sit, boom. Because the dog doesn't know sit.
Remember that thought,
Yeah.
because I think this is really important.
Yeah.
Let me just turn this off. You're saying sit, boom. I want to show what boom actually
is.
looks
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
Hold it or give it. I completely.
I'll
don't
hold
mind.
it.
Okay.
As the guy who doesn't really use them on a regular basis, I'll hold it. So I'll show you the light on the camera if I can as well.
We'll see. So if you take it out your hand for now, just so that they can see the light. So you can see when this light goes off, it registers with that. So red light, that means it's being activated. You can see that those prongs there are touching the skin of Joe's hand.
And I'll hold it like this so it is.
So you can very clearly see. I'm at level 2. Can you?
I'm not reacting because I can't feel anything.
Can you genuinely feel anything at all?
No, I can't feel anything.
Okay, so let's go up to a level 6.
Still can't feel anything.
Level 10.
Still can't feel anything.
Level 12.
No, which is what you had it last working with.
Yeah.
This is the thing. So you had it last working at 12 and I can't feel it at 12.
15. Can you still see the light? Just see the camera.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you see the light?
Yeah, no.
Nothing. Let's go to level 18.
No. I'm hard. That's what it is. I'm like, yeah.
So 22. So this is past where I've worked with dogs because I condition the dog to understand what it means in a positive way.
Yeah. So I can now just feel something.
Do you want to explain what that sensation feels like?
The sensation is like this. Like, I need to explain it. But it's like someone running their finger across you.
Okay.
Like that's like literally just across the palm of your hand going. So I could feel something was there, but it doesn't.
Okay. So willing to keep going?
Yeah.
So that's 22.
So that's 22 where I can feel it like
25.
Now I can feel it a bit more.
Let's go to 30.
Yeah. So that's where I'm actually starting to feel something.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's one of those things that you could do that probably to me for a while. It's uncomfortable, but it's more like it's moved from someone touching my hand to someone like flicking my hand.
Yeah.
Of being like, yo. And that's what we talk about, the attention with an e-collar is like, the attention of an e-collar is like, that's the levels to it.
Yeah.
It's like someone just about touching you to someone like tapping you to someone, and it's just moving up those levels. But as we said, you're working at a dog at a 12. I couldn't even feel it at 12.
Yeah. And
so
that's responsible use of an
That's
e-collar.
responsible,
now,
precisely.
If I went that up to 100, it
and just
would hurt.
Boom. Yeah, of
It
course.
would hurt. I mean,
Yeah,
let's not lie.
Yeah,
Let's not skip around that fact. It would be very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Now, if I put a flat collar on a dog and dragged on the collar as hard as I could, that would also hurt. And that would also be a terrible way to use that. Now, if I have got a dog that through a 4 to 6 week program has been conditioned to use an e-collar and around very low distraction is working at a level 8 to level 12 is kind of where I find it works.
Yeah.
And with that, it's nothing more than just that little tap.
Yeah.
So at a distance, silently, I can just go, hey, just on the side of the neck, hey buddy. And they go, oh yes.
Yeah.
When I feel that, if I go over there, something amazing is going to happen.
Yeah.
And the second I'm just tapping, and the second they go, the tapping stops. That's all it is, and that's how I use it. Now, if I've got a Connie Corso, a Rottweiler, a German Shepherd, who has a history of bites or even worse, killing other dogs or animals, and they are in full red mist mode, I then have another 90 levels to slowly work my way up to get it to enough of where I'm saying, dude, stop.
Yeah.
You need to come back to me. And the only way you're going to stop me annoying you with this is to listen and come back.
And if it's with a bite history, it's protecting the person and it's protecting the dog.
Yes. And so you tell me that dog in that level of red mist will come away from that behaviour with food.
Yeah.
I can promise you through years of experience that it will not happen.
Yeah.
And any positive trainers that do not believe me, let me know. I will take you to the shelter where I work with police cases of dogs that have killed other dogs, mauled children, and I will set up a situation in which I will get that dog into that mode. I'll bring another dog out and we will film it for this channel, and you can demonstrate how your ability to bring them away with food works. If that happens, I promise you, on camera, every ounce, I will delete every video that has ever advocated for any kind of approach using corrections, and I will only ever advocate for a positive only approach, which I would be more than happy to do. I'm not doing it for my ego. I'm not doing it because it's cool to be a balance trainer.
That's not like a look at me kind of thing. It's a no legit like.
That is a genuine offer
like
that I will make.
Yeah.
And then if it doesn't work, I will step in and I will help address that through a balanced approach. Every time, and you can vouch for this, and you hand on heart, I try and use zero correction as possible. I always start, and my methodology is that I have a three-stepped approach to using physical correction, or to justify the use of physical correction. Are you causing severe harm to yourself as the dog? Are you causing or at risk of causing severe harm to a human or another animal? Are you at risk of causing significant property damage? If the answer is yes to any of those questions, I ethically feel absolutely fine in utilising physical correction. Now, I usually use a prong collar for that. E-collars, I like to use purely positively wherever possible, but if it's the tool that's required for the job, especially if it's a dog that is incredibly handler reactive, then I might only be able to use the e-collar and have to do it at a distance to keep myself safe, or I'm going to have to use the prong collar in a full bite suit, and then I've not got the ability and agility that I would like to be able to handle these Rottweilers literally trying to kill me. These are the dogs we're talking about here. Now, what was I saying, Joe? Because I went off on a complete tangent there, and I wanted to finish my train of thought. It was going in a direction.
It was going in a direction.
I had
this is what often happens.
A powerful moment to finish on there. We're talking about you can come and do that.
This makes us look like really unprofessional podcasters.
It does, doesn't it?
It does.
Good job. This is episode number 1.
Oh, of like you can do that, like the positive.
Yes, that's what I was about. So, my justification for using physical correction. Now, so if I've justified, I can sleep soundly knowing that if the dog meets one of those 3 criteria, I am more than happy in utilising physical correction to help see that behaviour happen less frequently, because my level of physical correction will be less than the result of that behaviour. Does that make sense? So, but then the next level on from that is then I will only ever use the minimum amount of physical correction required to achieve the desired outcome. So I'm never going to come in, set that to 100 and blast it. I'm going to start on level 1 and it's going to go to wherever is required to achieve the desirable outcome if a completely force-free approach will not work. I don't understand where the argument with that is. And again, we'll talk about this as well, is that so I used to work with special needs young men in youth offending and in special needs schools for young men with behaviour difficulties. So a lot of these young men had been excluded from multiple mainstream schools and were then either going into youth offending institutions or were at severe risk of going into youth offending institutions. No other mainstream school will have them. There's an allergy, no other positive only trainer will work with them. So they have to come to us. Now, in those settings, physical interventions with young men were very common in those settings. Where I got those 3 justifications for using physical corrections for dog is exactly the protocol that's used. So if the government, the UK government, completely advocates and allows for physical intervention to be utilised with children, these between, I was more kind of key stage 3, so 11 to 14, but I worked with people and colleagues and children in key stage 2 and 3 where physical corrections or physical interventions had to be utilised. The UK government allows that, providing it meets one of those 3 criteria. So if you ever had a physical intervention, you had to fill out forms, you had to justify the use of that physical intervention and explain how you used the minimum level of physical intervention required to stop that child causing harm to themselves, to stop that child causing harm to others, or to stop that child from doing severe property damage. And you had to justify that, and there would be people that'd sign off on it, and it just was part of the process. It was an everyday occurrence. Now, again, my skill set was in being able to kind of help those young men not getting to those situations where those things were required. So we would use very positive-based approaches, and I would design bespoke behaviour interventions to see that behaviour happen less frequently, to see that undesirable behaviours that got them into this situation where they weren't able to go to mainstream environments over time, we'd bring that behaviour down. And again, the UK government, the smartest people in the educational system, apparently, fully allow the use of those kind of protocols. Again, in terms of corrections, detention, lines, being suspended, all those things. With children, we say it is completely okay to punish them. Now, again, we don't use kind of physical punishment in the educational system because there's other ways, because children aren't dogs. Now, if with dogs we could give them a detention or give them lines,
put them on the naughty
or
step.
put them on the naughty step, of course we would use that. When it comes to dogs, we don't. And dogs communicate differently to how humans communicate. Watch any dog interact with any other dog. When one dog steps over the line, the other dog will verbally and then physically correct it. And they will use the minimum amount of verbal or physical correction achieved to let the other dog know, stop it, pack it in, I'm not allowing that. It's completely normal to them, it's completely natural to them. And for that article to say that it causes psychological damage, the worst part of that article is saying that it causes psychological damage which makes the behaviours worse, that causes them to have to get put down, is absolutely ludicrous. So again, we allow it in education, and if I've got loads of stories of kids trying to stab me, or horror stories of working in those environments. If I tell you those stories, people, and the same people that advocate a positive approach to dog training, I promise you, will be mortified by those stories and would want to see those children punished. Their mind will instantly go to punishment. I guarantee their mind doesn't go to, well, if you got a £20 note out and said, please don't stab me and you can have this £20 note, they would laugh at you for saying that that's what you did to try and stop that kid from stabbing you. They would instantly want ramifications and consequences to those severe actions. We are dealing with similar stuff with dogs, yet those same people want to advocate giving a dog a £20 note for displaying those undesirable behaviours in the form of using food rewards to them. That's a great analogy, Where is the logic, to me, just boggles my mind. I just don't understand, which is why I get so fired up. Because again, I've worked with children that have tried to stab me, and I've worked with dogs that are willing to try and kill me. And I work with those children, or used to work with those children, and I work with those dogs because I care. Because I love them and I don't want to see them. I didn't want to see those kids end up in prison because I know what happens in those situations. So I would be the one putting myself in that situation where they were trying to stab me, they were trying to hurt me, they were trying to burn down rooms with me in them, they were trying to commit suicide on a regular basis. I put myself through psychological damage to myself of having to deal with that and the mental health things that caused me because I care. I do the same with dogs because I care and I want to help them, and I don't, the same way I don't want to see those kids go to prison, I don't want to see these dogs get put down and end up in shelters. So to say that I'm causing the psychological damage because I'm using tools that do fix the problem, to me is ludicrous and does upset me, and as you can tell, does fire me up and makes me sad for all of the other people on YouTube trying to do the same thing, the Garretts, the Toms, the Larrys, because I know that they feel the way that I feel to their core, and it annoys me when uneducated people are attacking them for doing something that comes from a place of care, not from a place of ego or I'm so tough and I want to hurt this dog. It comes from a place of caring. And to just willy-nilly throw out those articles, I think is irresponsible and it's uneducated and it winds me up, and I'm going to stop now. And I wish I had a coffee because that'd be an easy way for me to break my sentence.
We finished the coffee. I just want to go touch back on. So we've talked a lot about the behavioural side of stuff and how it can be used in that. What I just want to touch back on what I was kind of touching on before you put an e-collar on me.
Oh yeah, I did say remember that thought. We're coming back to
and we are coming back to it because
I
think it is. I genuinely think it's a really important thing. Is that we're talking about e-collars largely in a sense of behavioural work.
Yes,
which they can be used for, and they're really, really useful tools. You can also use them just for training. Now, what you need to do is teach your dog the command that you want them to do. So whether that's sit, whether that's lie down, whether it's place, whether it's heel, whatever, you need to teach them that command. And a lot of that will be through positive reinforcement with food or toy or whatever. You teach them that, and then you kind of bring the e-collar in. That's how I would personally do it. Other people might do it slightly differently, but that's how I would personally do it, and that's what I'm learning is the way to do that. Now, you use the e-collar then to reinforce what you're saying, because there'll become times when that dog gets older and they go, yo, you just give me a tiny bit of kibble when I sit, and I don't want that tiny bit of kibble, so I'm not going to sit. Which is where this relationship between you and your dog, which is so important, can break down, because then they're going, I'm not going to sit for you, which the first time it's like, oh, that's annoying, they didn't sit. But where does that go? It goes to the point in my head, which I never want to get to, is where my dog's running away from me, about to run into a road. I'm going, come back, come back, come back. And they're going, no, I know that I don't have any consequence for this, so I'm going to go to that. So then when you bring an e-collar into just your everyday training, rather than kind of behavioural dog trying to bite your face off or whatever, when you bring it into training, it's then going sit, not sitting, level 1, sit. And it's building that up.
I'll jump in there. That. You would actually associate the sit with it at a very low level. So rather than it being a consequence to the action of not doing the behaviour, you associate the behaviour with the stimulus. Yeah. And the stimulus shuts off when the behaviour is demonstrated. Yeah. So,
which is the perfect example.
And then it's paid. And it's
recall is the best, I think, example with that. It's like, come, on goes the e-collar
at very low levels,
at very low levels,
feel it, and at most it's
like yo, hello, and that might be because they're flipping miles away and you're doing different kind of training with them. But then once you get that, I'm coming back to you, boom, off we go.
Yeah,
like, and then I'm getting, and it's praise, and it's yes, good.
It's very kind of Pavlovian to me when people use it in the right way of like ringing a bell in a dog's face. It's not nice, not hurting it. It's not nice, but. If you don't know about Pavlov's dogs, it's an very old psychological thing that a lot of things are built on. But you rung a bell and fed the dog, and the dog would salivate because the food was there. And then eventually you could remove the food, ring the bell, and the dog would still salivate because he associated the two things. For me, you're doing a similar thing. You're putting the sensation of just onto the net, not hurting at all. It's just me going, hey bro, and if I did this behind, and every time you look round I gave you a £20 note, I guarantee after a couple of days of that, every time you felt this, you'd go, oh, yes,
all right, yes. Money time. Yeah.
And I could, through operant conditioning, I could condition you to associate the tap on your shoulder to mean come to me, and then if I could do that at a distance, I would start by doing it here. But if I could tap you on the shoulder from the other side of the room, I guarantee I could get you to walk to me. We do it
every day with our phones.
Yeah.
Like, it's a natural reaction. We use Discord to talk to each other.
Yeah.
But there's when you get a message, and literally, the other day, you were in the office with me, and someone messaged me on Discord, and I kept going like that. And it's like a natural reaction. Like I've heard something and I turn my head to it because every time it goes off, I need to respond to that. And you were like, do you mind just turning the sound off that? Because I wasn't listening. But that's...
And it's a similar principle.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
You should have had your attention on me, and that stimuli distracted that attention away. Yeah. Now, if we only ever use Discord, this is a good analogy because you're over the car park in the office. Yeah. If the only time we ever use Discord and that little boop was to let you know coffee's up, I guarantee after 2 weeks, every time you heard that boop, you'd get a woo.
Do you remember?
And you'd be oh yes, it's time to go. And you'd be up and you'd be running up to me. And
there's that episode in the Office, isn't there, where Jim does it with Dwight? He gives him a mint.
Yes,
every time. I can't remember what he says, but he gives him a mint, and he does it over a few weeks, and then like the noise goes off, and he literally goes like this. Like puts his hand out to get the mint, and Jim's like, "What do you want?" And then he's like, "My mouth feels really like disgusting because it hasn't got a mint in it." It's the same thing. And massive Office fans here, by the way.
Big time. But you can do the you can achieve the same outcome in a very positive way. You're adding it now. Where the e-collar is wonderful is that when they are running, chasing that squirrel out into the road, that doo-doo could be doo-doo.
Yeah,
and then
it can be like,
hey,
whoa. Yeah.
Enough until eventually go, all right, I'm coming for the coffee.
Yeah. Can I just say I would love it if the e-collar did make a hey. It was like, hey, Hey.
So I might do put one of these on you when you come in every day, but make it a sound one.
Yeah,
press
that'd
a
be
button that
fantastic.
says "Hey,"
and I'll be like, oh, carpet time!
yeah. And I'll film it and I'll see you running across the car park.
Like dribbling. Oh dear.
But yeah, they're all funny analogies, but very true.
Yeah. Well, that is a longer rant than we thought we were going on, but I think we've covered like loads of different topics of like behavioural work and training. I think what I would say take away from this is just go and educate yourself about it.
And not
like we haven't got all the answers. We don't know everything either.
Nope.
We are far from experts. Even the people we've talked about today, who we look up to, the Tom Davis, like they will not say they're experts. They'll always say there's more I can learn.
They're so good. Is for that exact reason.
Exactly that reason.
We'd waffle on that for another minute. That, and in life, that's so incredibly important, but definitely in the 100%. Dog world. The second you say, I'm the best, or my method is the best, you've lost.
Yeah.
Because someone is out there hustling, working hard, learning more than you, researching more than you, putting more reps in than you, and they're going to be better than you, and they're going to leave you behind. Yeah. So, and that's what, again, it's what we touched on it earlier. It's something I'm really encouraging you to do in terms of the training stuff. There's loads more I can teach you in the behaviour and behaviour modification of severe aggression, but you've kind of highlighted, I don't really think that's what I want to specialise in. So I've been, okay, cool. Here are the people that I think are the best in those fields, and you now need to go and study under and watch and learn from and develop your own style and run with it. For me to say, no, what they do is stupid. Do what I do. My way's the best way. So no, I found a way that works well for the stuff that I do, and I'm still trying to get better at that.
Works well for the stuff you do. As you doing it as well, because that's the other thing. You have a different energy to me. You're 6'4" or whatever. I'm like smaller than you. Like I've got a different presence to you. When I walk in a room, it lights up. When you walk in a room, the lights go off. I'm joking. But it's a different. There's a different. Between me and you,
and that's okay.
There's different energy, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I'm a different trainer to you. How you train Riley is different. Like my lab puppy is different to how I train Riley, and she responds in different ways to different things. Neither's right, neither's wrong. It's what works for you as the trainer. Now, you could achieve massive things with no e-collar. Awesome. You could achieve massive things with an e-collar. Awesome. There's no right, there's no wrong. It's what works for you as the trainer. You as that's kind of what I like. Educate yourself, work out what works for you as your trainer with your dog. Because you may have two dogs at home and one's responding to one thing and one's not responding. Work out what's right for you, work out what's right for your dog, educate yourself.
Be open-minded.
About it.
Just be a kind person. Stop being knobs and shouting at people.
Don't shout at people about... I'm not going to shout at people that come back at me and go, I'm never watching Fenrir again because of what you've said today. Okay, that's fine. That's your choice. Yeah. I'm sorry if what we have said or anything has offended you. I'm really sorry. I'm not here to do that. Yeah. I'm not here to achieve a goal that I'm like, I want to upset people. I have my opinion.
You're the best.
100%. Yeah. It's not about that. I have my opinion. Listen to it if you want. Don't listen to it if you don't want. But
explain your opinion if you think it's different, and I guarantee we'll listen to you.
Yeah, and I'll listen to you 100%. We may not agree.
But that's okay.
That's life. That's fine. But I'm not going to shout about it at you. I don't want you to shout at me about it. I'm very sensitive.
We don't want to have to cry in the office.
Don't shout at me. So many flashbacks. But let's get educated about these things. And this isn't just about e-collars. It's a wider thing. All these things that are going on with politics. All these things. Let's just get educated about this stuff before we start running our mouths and going, this is right and this is wrong.
And then even if you are educated about something, just and then you form your opinion, then don't attack other people. Do you think there was ever a situation where you felt one way, you're anti e-collar. Now I come in and I scream at you and tell you are a disgusting human being. You are, or maybe you're pro e-collar and I'm anti. You're disgusting. You are awful. You are a horrible person. You're a bully. You're a nasty bastard. People should cancel you. Do you think you then go, okay, maybe I'll listen to you?
You know what? You're right.
You make really solid points.
Yeah.
No, you're just going to go, whoa.
Wow. Defense. I'm not interested. Don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Like,
be decent human beings, people. Chill out, man.
There's so many flashbacks happening. Got really emotional when you start screaming at me there.
We'll turn the cameras off and I'll cradle you. I'll stroke your beard. It's okay, Joe. I didn't mean it.
I roll in the corner. Like,
I was just joking. I was making a point.
You're not a bastard. Yeah, so that's our kind of view on it, guys. Like, yeah. If you ever have anything more you want us to talk about and rant about, drop it in the comments below.
We're going to do at least one of these a week, aren't we? Is that the plan?
The plan is to do one podcast a week.
The problem is I could do 4 of these a day because I really enjoy doing it.
I just love spending
time. But then we'd get
together.
Nothing else
We
done.
would get nothing done. But we want to touch on these like topics, like I said, like with dog stuff, with live stuff. And that's the cool thing, actually. I think that just during this conversation that I've kind of... probably I'm taking away from this conversation is that we've talked about e-collars, but actually it's the wider perspective of like, take this away with life, man. Like, get educated in life. Like, be kind to people.
Preach.
Don't push people down. And if you want something and you want to do it right and you want to get educated, just get after it.
Yeah.
Just go and do it. Like, be the person. Don't shout at the person.
Amen.
Would be how I put it on it.
Skol.
Skol.